and I'm so excited to talk about this project today because there's so many cool components behind it, and we need to pick his brain about what's going on, talk a little bit about the fundamentals, and also get into the utilities. So I would like to bring to the stage my homie, the man, the myth, the legend, Jake Sharpe. What is up, brother? How you doing, man?
What's up, man? Doing good. I'm excited. I'm excited for the stream because it's been a while since I've been on streams, dude. Just been
Yeah.
building.
How's it feel? How's it feel to finally be on streaming? Does it feel weird or excited? Like, what are you feeling?
It feels like where I belong. I just love talking, dude. Which is very rare because I used to be a lead software engineer, so it was just me and my laptop. And then after getting into business, you kind of have to learn how to market yourself and do VSLs and stuff. And that's where the whole camera side came out. It was very
Right.
natural. I like it.
Yeah. So big. You love to talk. You did a lot of live streams. A lot of people actually like your analysis on a lot of stuff. And then you decided to go, kind of underground and get into project development, and wasn't too much on the live stream. So how was that past? I think it was like year and a half. What was it like?
It's been relatively good. I think my last live stream was 5 or 6 months ago.
Okay.
So Titan X was an idea roughly 2 years ago. And the idea was essentially to find all of the best tokenomics of pretty much every crypto that seems to perform well over time and put it all into one. Because without a big part of the design principles actually came from Zen with the fair launching and the token distribution model. Because I think I love that. Fair launches, etc. I think that's the future of crypto. But then the other thing that kind of started making me think about this stuff was, were you around when the boost chain sacrifice and everything happened?
Yes.
Yep. So one of the things that kind of annoyed me was the perfect crypto in my eyes was Hex combined with a buy and burn like PLSX, where the DEX buy and burn would actually go ahead and burn Hex, and most of the supply was locked off of market, so the buy and burn would have a massive effect. And I never understood the idea of splitting it up into two tokens, having a good tokenomic here and a good tokenomic here, instead of bringing it all into one. And that's kind of where this whole ideation process began. But I knew I wasn't going to launch a token at the top of the bull market and then have it run all the way down the entire bear market. So I knew I was going to have to wait until at least November 2022. That was roughly the bottom of the market. And now it's perfect because usually you put in the bottom. So November 2022 was the bottom. Then you go sideways, kind of in a range for a year. That ranging period ends here in November, so next month. And then you kind of have a linear up until the Bitcoin halving, maybe one little scare dip, and then you just off to the bull run. So this is the perfect environment to launch. So timing ended up being perfect.
Yeah, no, definitely. Launching your project at the bottom of the bear market's always going to be great. The famous saying, hockey stick. Richard always talk about on live stream. You see it on X or Twitter. I keep calling it Twitter, but X.com. I see so many of those videos, and everyone keeps putting out there because of all the FUD. So that's a very good point. Now, before we get into the meat and the cheese, the Titan X, a lot of people that view me actually don't know who you are. So could you give us like a quick background? Who's Jake Sharpe? What first got you into cryptocurrency, and all the details?
So I'll try to keep this short because it's actually kind of funny. So I've been in crypto since roughly end of 2016-ish. And it's actually kind of funny how I came in. So after kind of graduating school, I became a lead software engineer at a couple of startups. I think I had 2 lead software engineering jobs. And I always wanted to start my own business. So did the whole software engineering thing. I always knew I wanted to do something with code. So I used it as a learning opportunity. Then I started my own business. The first business I ran was a nightlife company. And on the side, we were doing some e-com. And I learned a lot about Facebook ads and stuff like that. So that I ended up spinning off a marketing agency where we actually used to run Facebook ads and Google ads, like Google Shopping ads and stuff for e-com brands. We ran that business for a while. And during that business, we actually had a local client. And that local client was actually a crypto education company. So we were shooting some video content for them for that VSL, for the funnel that we're running ads to. And I was recording this because I was doing videography at the time. So I was recording this and I was like, damn, this crypto thing is actually really fucking interesting. And that's kind of how I got into crypto. So then I started, buying Bitcoin and then experienced the 2017 run. Not with a lot of money. I didn't take it that serious, but I was like, damn, this crypto thing is very interesting. Kept my eye on it. Just kept on focusing on business. And then by end of 2019, all the alarm bells were going off as something big was happening in crypto. And that's pretty much where I paused everything. So we worked with existing clients, didn't take any new clients, and just went full-time crypto. and then things went very fast. If you were around in the 2020 bull market, that was freaking insanity. Insane.
Yeah, that 2021, I know that 2020 bull market was insane with, Hex, seeing, like even other projects like Polygon. Everyone thought Polygon was a scam, and then next thing you know, it did like I think it was like a 500x or something. So to see, how that market evolved, and to see how, you started off saying, wow, this stuff is cool, and now it's basically like your life. I wouldn't say full-time job, because I think, you're above like doing the 9 to 5 right now. You're actually like a founder. But regardless, it's so interesting how this story evolved. Now, my question to you is, you've been really big in the Hex and Pulse Chain community. What attracted you to Hex and Pulse Chain?
The moment you kind of get into crypto, I think crypto for a lot of people is like a spiritual experience where they really start understanding the matrix and how money actually works. And then once you get really down that rabbit hole, you start hating the fiat traditional system. So then you start getting into DeFi. And then when you get into DeFi, half of it is scams, half of it is rug pulls, half of it has admin keys where they can just rug it to zero whenever they want. Some Indian developer in his mom's basement can just rug a liquidity pool to zero. So then you kind of stumble on Richard Hart. And Richard Hart was the guy that taught me a lot about real DeFi. I understood crypto, but I didn't understand real DeFi at the time. Admin keys, that was a very, very big one. So then you start looking for admin keyless projects, and you can barely find them. Everything has an admin key. Every bridge has an admin key. So you're afraid to start using bridges. So you have to use centralized exchanges as bridges. So Richard was actually the one that got me into real DeFi. And then he tried to find real DeFi stuff. And the only way you can really find real DeFi stuff is to go into very niche communities on YouTube. And usually these niche communities, because of how small they are, and they kind of go against the norm in crypto with no admin keys, immutable, pure DeFi, no middleman, etc. These communities are very strong. And usually these communities have the smartest people. And that's kind of how I got into falling in love with like the whole Pulse Chain Hex community, because that's genuinely where the smartest people are. Now, Richard is in a very interesting position. Back in the day, he was live streaming all the time, and I would watch his live streams like 4 to 5 times over, even his old ones. I would just, when I was working, I was listening to his live streams in the background. That was a very, very big turning point. And then he also called the top on the day. And then you kind of start getting into the whole timing analysis, understanding cycles, real DeFi. That was a big learning experience. And then the other guy comes. His name is Jack Levin. I like Jack a lot. And he does this whole fair launching thing. So now my mind is focused on 2 big things: real DeFi, fundamentals, tokenomics, no admin keys. And then another big thing you start realizing in a bull market is usually good projects. A project can be as good as it wants if it genuinely has like 30% team allocation, 50% going to venture capitalists. No matter how good the project is, it just gets dumped to zeros. It just literally gets dumped to zero. So I like the idea of real DeFi combined with fair launching. And I have like an entire Google document with all of the tokenomics I've seen across all of the projects. And TitanX is basically a combination of everything I've learned in crypto, from seeing all the tokenomics perform in the market. Because some tokenomics look good on paper, but then on market, they don't perform at all. So this is the combination of pretty much everything I learned. And the building of it was relatively easy because I used to manage dev teams, like in my 9 to 5 job before going into business. So the whole dev team stuff was very easy. And then having the marketing background and funnels and conversions, it just feels like it's the path to go down. And now, especially with the timing, this is the time. And now we have the entire bull run.
Yeah, it's definitely very exciting times, because now we're evolving into the next bull run. It felt like 2020 was just yesterday, but also
Right.
it was kind of long. Crypto years it's really interesting, man. But we're coming into the next bull market. You got your own project. You're going to start live streaming again, and then now Richard's in the background with the SEC. No one knows if he's going to be coming to the forefront, and then you got Jack Levin doing Jack Levin stuff. And so it's gonna be a very interesting time. So now let's evolve on from your background, and let's get into the main thing everyone wants to hear about: Titan X. I know you gave us little snippets in the beginning, little nuggets. What is Titan X, and what is the main goal behind this protocol for anyone who doesn't know it already?
Yep. I'm still figuring out a very clean, polished marketing message. But basically, from a tokenomics perspective, it's fair launched, meaning that it doesn't have any venture capitalists, no pre-sales, no ICOs, nobody's in. the code launches fairly, immutably on the blockchain, and then everybody can get in, including me. So TitanX is going to be fair launched. The token distribution, the tokens basically come into existence by people starting miners. So it's essentially a mineable cryptocurrency, but instead of having to use hardware or having to buy GPUs from Chinese manufacturers that are half used by the time you get them, you basically just use Ethereum and time. So it's meant to be a grassroots kind of project that fairly launches and that can stand the test of time. So I would say there's three core tokenomics of TitanX. One is the buy and burn. The buy and burn is absolutely massive. So we call the mining portion of it virtual mining. So to start a miner, you need Ethereum. So on day one, it starts at 0.2 Ethereum for a 100 power miner, also referred to as a max miner. So when we say max miner, we just mean 100 power. So there's two variables you can manipulate in a miner. One is how long it goes. So starting at day 1 to day 280, you can choose. And then the second variable is miner power, which starts at 1 and goes all the way up to 100. If you do 100 power, it's 0.2 Ethereum. If you do 1 power, it's 0.002, so divided by 100. If you do 50, it's 0.1. And essentially, all of the Ethereum that gets used to start miners get fed back to the community. 62% of it, and I'll explain in a bit why this is absolutely freaking insane, and I don't think people fully grasp it yet, is 62% goes to buy and burn. So it gets sent to a buy and burn contract. It's public functions called by users. It's decentralized. Nobody actually touches the funds. It's all smart contracts managing it with no admin keys. And so 62% goes to buy and burn TitanX off Uniswap v3 via the TitanX, wrapped Ethereum TitanX pair, which pushes up the price on market. Second thing is 28% gets put into these things called payout cycles. So essentially what payout cycles are is people can come in and they can stake their TitanX token that they get by either buying on the market through Uniswap or mining into existence through virtual mining. They can take these tokens and they can stake them. And then every time a payout cycle triggers, they get paid in Ethereum. Now, this is an extremely important design principle because one of the issues I saw with Hex is so Hex had this event called the Big Payday, where a lot of people staked their Hex before, and then on the Big Payday, they got a massive inflation bonus on all of their existing stakes. That's a big reason why Hex went down 99%, because of how much supply got brought into existence and people their stakes ending. So in crypto, you have this idea of fake yield and real yield. So fake yield is basically where you earn yield from the inflation of the token. So it's actually kind of fake yield. You just get more of the token. And then the price usually drops where you didn't really gain anything. Then the other thing is real yield, where you actually get paid a percentage of the revenue that the protocol generates. The cool thing about real yield is, let's say, for example, you stake your TitanX and you get paid out Ethereum. If you want to realize your staking gains, you don't have to dump down the TitanX price. That's massive, because for Hex stakers, for example, if they want to realize their yield and they want to go buy something, they have to dump the price down, which is very bad design principle. So we fixed that by making sure that stakers get paid by Ethereum, not via more TitanX tokens, which also dampens the inflation, which is very important for a chart. So that element, so you have the buy and burn, 62% buy and burn, 28% goes to stakers. Then you have 7% going to something called a burn pool. So I would guess most people in the chat have heard of Zen. So Zen has this function called the proof of burn function, where projects can actually build on top of Zen, and they can burn Zen and bring their token into existence, and they can kind of adopt a community by implementing Zen burning. So we implemented that as well into TitanX, and we put our own spin on it. So I believe that builders and people who provide value to TitanX should get rewarded with more value, because if they bring millions of dollars of value to TitanX, they should earn money. They should. So builders can actually define up to 8% of whatever amount is burned. So let's say you build a protocol and the protocol burns 1 trillion TitanX, or users choose to burn 1 trillion TitanX to get into your protocol. You can actually get up to 8% of that. And this is decentralized and encoded, so anybody can build on top of TitanX and essentially build a business on top of it. So you have the buy and burn. So this is kind of, so the buy and burn, the staker payouts, and then the 7% goes to something called the burn pool. So there's 4 classes of people in TitanX. One is miners, so people who start miners and bring tokens into existence. Second class is stakers. They get paid in Ethereum. Third class is burners, so people who actually choose to burn their TitanX to participate in other projects. That's the third class. And then the fourth class is builders, people who actually build on top of TitanX. We're going to come out with the first protocol, which is going to be called Hyper, which is, I won't mention anything about that, but is going to be fucking insanity.
Top secret.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's get Titan off the ground. But that's essentially what happens with all the Ethereum. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Sorry. No. I love all your concepts when you got into Hex and Zen. You're just taking the core components and bring it all into one protocol. Now, I really want to highlight on this concept of virtual mining, something you talked a lot about in your white paper. Would you say this is just a new concept that you're introducing to the DeFi/cryptocurrency space, or is this like a traditional concept that you see in the past across DeFi?
Mining of crypto has been around for a very long time. There's just been a lot of variations on it. So, for example, Bitcoin is still coming into existence via mining. I like the mining element because it allows it to be fair. Because one of the biggest things I try to solve is I like getting my friends and family into crypto. But one of the issues is if you're deep into crypto and you get your family in, they're usually coming in at the top. And I never like that,
Right.
and you never want to onboard people. But then if you have a mining cryptocurrency, everybody gets in at roughly the same floor. So I wanted to build something where I can actually talk to my friends and be like, hey, you start some miners. And I'm not afraid that they're buying the top and losing all of their money and then me losing a friendship. So I like mining because it gives everybody a fair opportunity to get their fair share of supply if they're willing to spend the time actually mining it. And if they're not willing to spend the time, they just buy on a market, which is totally fine. But it essentially is a very fair way of onboarding people in a way where they don't become exit liquidity for the early people. And this is for the initial token distribution, and then that drops massively. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like your description of mining and onboarding people, because through my research, there's a blockchain called Caspa. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but it basically is like a DAG proof of work blockchain. And then there's also other proof of work blockchains. And their main argument against proof of stake is solely based on the fact of centralization and some of the sketchiness that we've seen with the proof of stake model. And for the longest time, I thought proof of work was faulty. I listened to Richard's live streams, and I understood what he was saying when it came to energy consumption being a huge problem. But one thing I saw was a development of an industry within cryptocurrency where people are still excited about this concept of mining. They're still excited about, updated versions of proof of work. And what I really like about what you're implementing with virtual mining is it's not necessarily like a proof of work blockchain, but it's this cool concept that is going to be under a massive experiment at the launch of Titan X. So, any comments about that before we move on to the next one?
Yeah. So I want to say some numbers. So if you go to zenturbo.io, Zen had roughly $80 million spent on actually minting it. $0 of that went back to the community. It all went to Ethereum validators because all of it goes to gas spending. Now, what if $80 million comes into Titan X to start virtual miners? That would be $50 million of buy pressure directly into a small Uniswap V3 liquidity pair. Wait, is my internet hanging up,
Can you
or
hear
is
me?
it your side?
No, I don't know. I know it just glitched out. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Because I think what happened was I brought up Zen Turbo and then it just kind of went crazy.
Okay, I thought it was on my side.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
So
You're good.
$80 million was roughly spent on gas for Zen. And we can assume like 80% of that is minting. So let's say 60 million.
Right.
$60 million of that was spent minting Zen, of which $0, exactly $0 went back to the community. It all goes to gas spending. So it's a very high economic waste protocol. But people love the token distribution, so it has a strong community behind it. But what if 62% of that actually went towards building the liquidity pool? Because when something buys and burns, so let's say there's 1,000 Ethereum that comes in, 620 Ethereum goes to the buy and burn contract. When that 620 Ethereum buys on market, that 620 doesn't disappear. Basically, what happens is the 620 Ethereum goes into the pool and takes the equivalent side of Titan X out, which is what happens when you buy on Uniswap. So the liquidity pool grows as protocol gets adoption. So the price goes up and the liquidity pool grows. So by the time people get their miners, you don't get this down-only chart. So in the beginning, you actually have an up-only chart because everybody's going to be starting miners, and the buy and burn is going to buy on market, which pushes up the chart, but nobody gets their supply. So it's pretty much going to be the opposite of the Zen chart, which is going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a very interesting concept. I like that. Okay, so let's just jump into some little small mechanics, and these are questions that people in the community wanted to ask you directly. So right when we have the Titan X fair launch, that's when you can go in and purchase a miner, specify your staking length, and the whole nine yards that you explained in the beginning. Now, first question is, will there be any tokens in circulation at the start of the launch? And if so, what would be the starting market cap?
Yep, that's a great question. So one of the issues that I've also seen with a lot of projects, especially sacrifice projects launching, is they don't understand how to set their initial liquidity pool. How many charts have you seen of these sacrifice projects coming out and it's like a big L? It's like bump, and then it gets the price what it actually needs to be. It's because they don't understand liquidity pools, which is mind-boggling. So yes, there is going to be an initial supply minted. It's going to be 350 billion Titan X paired with 28 Ethereum. And the buy and burn contract has a one-time permission to mint 350 billion Titan, pairs that with 28 Ethereum, creates the initial Uniswap v3 liquidity pool. So people are actually going to be able to just buy on market if they want to as well, which is a big issue we also wanted to solve. Because if somebody bought Zen on market on day one, ouch.
Oh. Yeah,
Minus 100%.
That's a very good point. So
Mhm.
is the liquidity pool going to be burnt, or how's that going to work with access to it? Okay, it's going to be burnt. Okay, awesome.
So this is important design. So basically, the buy and burn creates the liquidity pool, and then the NFT is practically owned. So when you create a liquidity pool on Uniswap v3, it gets represented by an NFT. That NFT is owned by the buy and burn smart contract with no admin keys of any kind to access it or edit it. So it's practically locked liquidity.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, the funny part about locked liquidity is, if anyone's been following what's going on with like a Tropo and PDI, not many people really understood this concept before that. And ever since like the whole PDI pegging theory came along, locked liquidity is probably one of the most well understood concepts in Pulse Chain, which is actually completely very ironic. But definitely thank you for that explanation. Now, let's get a little bit into the mining distribution. So you set up a stake, you get into virtual mining, and then we have a breakdown of these fees. 62%, you talk about the buy and burn. Really excited about that because it'll possibly cause some upward price momentum. Then we have the 28th goes into payout cycles, 7% burn pool, and 3% genesis. These distributions, like these percentages, how did you come up with these percentages, and what's the game theory behind them?
Yep. So this project is heavily based in numerology and gematria. So the 8 and 28 numbers are very important. 8 is a number of money and power, and 28 is a number of wealth. So there's a lot of numerology going on, and 7 is also the number of the genius and intelligence. So a lot of this is also just based on numerology. 6 plus 2 is 8, 28 is wealth, 7 is genius. But then the percentages also kind of make sense because with virtual mining, you want the liquidity pool to be big by the time everybody gets their supply. Otherwise, a big whale can come in, they can mint, and they can essentially dump the supply 280 days later and massively hurt the liquidity pool. And this way of kind of doing it with the 62% buy and burn is by the time the whale gets their supply, the liquidity pool is going to be big enough that they can barely do damage.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the numerology and then weighing it based on how the liquidity pool needs to perform.
Oh yeah, and on top of numerology, we got to talk about some Germantia, TITX. You take the position of each of those letters in the alphabet. It adds up to 7-7, right? So was that a coincidence or was that by design?
Oh, it's all by design. At
All
Titan
of
X,
us.
8, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
but it's fairly interesting to see you add the components of like numerology and gematria behind it, because I'm a really huge fan of numerology, and a lot of people in the community are as well. Been seeing token supplies 11111 number of influence, and 28 big number that you pop up in your white paper. Money of wealth. Everybody wants wealth, so really cool concept, man. Now coming in, so we talk a little bit about this Genesis wallet, 3% allocated to the Genesis wallet. What's the purpose of the Genesis wallet, and does this have a similar application to the Hex OA wallet?
Yep. So the Genesis is worded like that for just the legal side of it. But hypothetically, if you want an ecosystem like this to succeed, there's another thing that we learned from Zen. So with Zen, for example, you have a lot of projects that launch on top of Zen. And for example, you had what was it, Zen Doge, then you had TG Zen and a bunch of projects that tried to launch on top of Zen. And the chart pretty much looks like down only, or it just gets rugged day one because there's no liquidity. The only way to stop something like that is to have some kind of benevolent entity that has enough, how you say that, economic mass in the system, not like 95% of the supply, like the way like the Genesis like is less than 10%, like 3%, but big enough where it can actually go ahead and pair these things together so that the liquidity becomes airtight. And this will become very important with how Hyper will act with Titan X. So you basically need a benevolent entity to create these pairs and make them airtight, and they don't really care about losing money because they're in it for the longevity of the ecosystem. That's why you kind of need to have something like the Genesis to make sure that there's enough liquidity in the ecosystems when new things launch around it.
Right. Yeah. That concept, I remember, Richard was saying, like, when was the best time to own Bitcoin? It was when Satoshi Nakamoto owned 85% of the supply. And so through that type of action, that's actually part of the reason why Bitcoin strive. And I know it's a different concept with what you're doing with Titan X, but I can see the overall purpose of the Genesis wallet. So definitely awesome concept. Now, let's get into the T rank bonus. So we have the fair launch, we have virtual mining, a lot of components behind this. And then you introduce something called the T rank bonus, which gets into the control of the inflation. So could you please explain how the T rank bonus works and how it will control inflation, the TINX token going on to the future?
Yep. So I think I can actually pull up the DApp. I'll show you what the DApp looks like in a bit.
Okay.
But basically, the T rank bonus, the way it works is there was two kind of ways of implementing a referral program. So what a referral program basically does is if you refer one-to-one, you would get a little bonus. Like, for example, if Amazon affiliate, you bring somebody an Amazon product, they buy it through your affiliate, you get a little kickback. In crypto, that's a sketchy area in general, like referral programs. So the best type of referral program that we could implement for to make it as legal as possible is basically a global referral program. So when you start a miner, your miner has a T rank. So let's say your miner number 10,000. So you start a miner, and your T rank is 10,001 on that miner. So every miner has its own T rank. So the next miner you start is like 10,002. All the miners that start after you push the T rank up, and then by the time you claim your miner, you get a bonus on all the miners that joined after you. So it acts like a global referral program to get people to do content, promote, kind of talk about it, so they get more miners coming in after them, which means they get a little bit more Titan X on their miner when they claim it at the end of the term. So it kind of acts like a global referral program.
Right, right. I got you. And just taking a look at the chart, just for everyone who sees it. So you have, like, the T rank bonus based off of your staking, and it's basically this I guess you can say it's more so logarithmic, but it's like it exponentially goes down lower. And by design, it incentivizes people to get in earlier so that you can get a bigger rewards, and then going out to the future, the supply decreases. And I think with that supply shock, that's when you start to see positive price behavior. And that's something we've seen in a lot of projects from, Bitcoin to other projects in the future. Jake, do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yep, exactly. But then the most important thing is if you scroll up a little bit, the first chart. Oh, no, the second chart. Well, the first and the second, actually. So
Okay.
this is very important. So usually, in general, an asset tends to go towards the price it costs to create it. So, for example, if you build a house, the house will pretty much never sell below cost of concrete and the hard materials to build it. So the miners create Titan X, and every miner kind of has a cost per Titan because they spend so much Ethereum, they get X amount of Titan at the end of their miner, so they have a cost per Titan. We want this price floor to move up over time because that will basically create the curve in the chart that trends upwards. So what happens with Titan is the Ethereum on day one, it's 0.2 Ethereum for a max miner, so 100 power, and then it moves up 0.08% a day, up to the cap of 1 Ethereum, which we hit roughly 2,000 days in. And then the second thing is, so the cost to create a miner goes up, and then every miner gets less and less every day. So if you go to the second chart, Titan X per day of minting, I'll show you how crazy this is. So let's say you do a max miner, so you do 100 power and 280 days on day one. You'll get on day one, you'll get 8.8 million Titan X per day of mining because there's a 10% bonus. This is just the base, as you can see, 8 million. But there's a 10% bonus on top for early adoption. And then it works its way down. And it also works its way down on your miner. So on day 1, you'll get 8.8 million. On day 2, you get 8.765 million. And then it kind of slowly starts curving down. And basically, if you wanted to start a miner at the end of your miner, so let's say, for example, you start your miner, 280 days later, you come in and claim it. You get your TOKENOMICS. That's for example, you say you sell it on market and you start compounding and you start more miners, for example. Those miners are going to start at 3.5 million a day, 280 days later. So it's a heavy deflationary effect. Because the whole mining model is basically a way to bring tokens into distribution and get people to start building around it. And then you just basically want to burn it to the ground through proof of burn. And the buy and burn. The buy and burn is actually freaking massive. So you have the buy and burn burning supply, and you have the proof of burn burning supply as well. So
Okay.
after a time, so on year 1, it's going to be like 6,000% inflation from everybody starting the miners because there's no supply in existence. But then roughly 3 to 4 years later, like the nominal inflation is like 0.001%. So at some point, the token supply practically becomes capped and it's just heavily deflationary through proof of burn.
Right. Yeah. That I did see that when I first initially saw the white paper. And what's interesting is you get like when you get closer to day 1,000, you're going to see a majority of the inflation already occurred. And if you divide that by 365, that's actually in accordance for the next bull market. So it seems like you're setting this up to, really do well, not only in this bull market, but also the next bull market. We all heard about the 2-cycle bull market curse, Jake, and I'm sure you've done a little research on this one. Is that the intent of the design to, not only do well in this bull market, but also supersede in the next bull market?
That would be absolutely perfect. Yep. So this was kind of timed to be a 2 bull market thing. And then it just all the suppliers in existence and people can do it what they want. We can still build on top of it. So it's not like it disappears. But in general, things tend to perform the best ever in their first cycle. So I don't think there's actually there could be a case where it actually performs better in the second bull market, but we'll have to find out.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next thing I want to ask you. So basically we have TOKENOMICS, which takes the best components of Hex, DBXN, and Zen and creates a new product with, a bunch of learning points from it. From our experience, we've seen a lot of these projects, try to do replications, do copycats and whatnot. In your opinion, do you think TOKENOMICS is a copycat? And if so, how do you think it's going to be different from the rest of these projects?
That's a good question. Well, by definition, it's not a copycat because we didn't copy any code. It's all
Right.
written from scratch. So it's not a fork. And I've never seen all the tokenomics combined together. So what I think actually might happen, because one of the big things that you learn in marketing is the best place you can ever be in is, so how a lot of cryptos launch is, for example, there's Aave, a lending protocol, and then they launch a second lending protocol with like a small little tweak, and then they hope to get a percentage of the market cap of Aave. I don't believe in that strategy. I believe in creating a category of one where people start copying you, which is why you want it to be very, very unique with the tokenomics model of TOKENOMICS. I think we actually created a category of one. So at the start, everybody's going to be like, hey, this is a copycat. And then they read the white paper and then they realize they're stupid as fuck and they turn around. That's kind of how it's going to be, because this was kind of designed in a way to be a category of one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. That was a big question. And I wanted to ask you that one because, I don't see this as being a replication, just in my own opinion, because, what you saw, and it goes back to the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin and Ethereum are very similar, but Ethereum starts implementing these dApps, and that's what made it so much more different than Bitcoin. And so what I see with TOKENOMICS is you're taking these concepts, you're learning these, you learned a lot of like valuable, I guess, messages, or there's a lot of learning points behind Zen and Hex, and you're adding a new component that makes it truly special in its own category. It could possibly very well be a new approach to appreciating crypto assets. I mean, well, technically your store of value, but regardless, it's definitely a very fascinating concept, and I'm definitely really excited to talk to you more about it. Now, getting into the rolling payouts, this is something people are excited about. You stake it out for a little bit. and you get to get some of these nice juicy dividend payouts. And I'll bring up the intervals in a second. But you pick 5 time intervals. What was the reasoning for the dividend payouts, and why did you pick 5 time intervals?
So basically the payout cycles happen in a rolling number of days. So rolling means it happens every X days. So for example, the first payout cycle is an 8-day cycle. So it triggers every 8 days. So on day 8, day 16, day 24, etc., etc. Every 28 days, every 90 days, every 369 days, and every 888 days. The reason we went that far out with 369 and 888, one, they're cool numbers, and two, is you want to kind of have a carrot to dangle to keep people interested in the ecosystem. And these pools are going to end up being very, very big because all of the virtual mining, a percentage of the 28% goes towards those longer term pools. So those build up. So what could happen, for example, with the 888 pool is, let's say there's like $1 million in there ready to be paid out to stakers. And then when day 888 triggers, it pays out to stakers. But what if Ethereum in that time period does a 5x because we're entering a bull market? That payout pool is now 5 million instead of $1 million because it's Ethereum and not USDC. It's kind of a carrot to, one, bring intrinsic value to TitanX, because if you stake one TitanX, it's worth this amount of Ethereum, so that strengthens the price floor as well. But also it's a carrot for people to be like, hey, it's like X amount of days until a very, very big payout, to keep people locked in, which is very important. Like a lot of crypto design is just, you have to make it sticky so people care.
Right. Yeah. I really like this concept because I feel like with staking protocols, the biggest downside is people do what's called delay gratification, and then the first thing they do is when they get their tokens, regardless of time, is they just sell that sucker off, and it really it really takes an impact on the price. So I like this dividend concept, and it reminds me a lot of like the stock market dividend payout. Now, for each of these time intervals, they build up over time, and is 100% of that paid out to all the TitanX miners / stakers?
Yep. So there's two big differences. A miner, they create the tokens, and then a staker is somebody who buys or has tokens that they've mined. So you need existing tokens to be able to stake. And the way this is also inspired by Hex, the way the staking works is there's a thing called global shares. So let's say there's like $1 million in a payout or whatever, and there's 1 million shares in existence from people creating stakes. So when you create a stake, essentially what happens, and this is very important for like a legal design, is your tokens get burned. And at the end of your stake, you remint them at your own private keys. So the contract never has any custody of anybody's funds. Very important. And essentially what you do, you basically turn your TitanX into shares during your stake, and then at the end of your stake, you remint your tokens back. The shares are dictated by how long you go. So there's a 350% bonus that caps at day 2,888. So if you do, for example, I think the minimum stake length is 28 days. So if you stake for 28 days, you get a very small, longer pays more bonus. So for example, on day one, it's 800 TitanX per one share.
Right.
Like you create. But if you go out and you do a max stake, for example, 2,888 days, you can actually go up to 3,500 if you want to keep your share. But that's where the bonus is cap. If you go up to 2,888, you get 350% more shares. So instead of paying 800 TitanX per share, you pay 177 TitanX per share. So the staking payouts are actually very heavily geared towards long-term believers, because it's your shares versus global shares. So if you have 1,000 shares and globally everybody has 10,000 shares, you get 10% from the entire payout.
Okay. I got you. Yeah. No, that's an interesting concept. I really like this dividend concept because it's going to really incentivize people to wait to trigger each of these intervals from 28, 90, 369. I love that number, 369. Have you heard that quote by Tesla? Have you heard that quote by Tesla? Yeah, I think it goes like, in order to understand the secrets of the universe, one must understand the significance of 369 or something like that.
Vortex, Matt.
Yeah, but yeah, that's cool. And then 888 days, all awesome, really, really cool numbers. So cool. Now, getting into this concept of the dividend payouts, you mentioned in the TitanX there's penalties. So you have to come in, and get your claim from your stake, and there's going to be a 7-day grace period followed by a 1% loss of Titan every day after. if you choose not to claim your Titan, will you still receive these dividend payouts?
Yep. So the way it works is you have to have this penalty because as long as the stake exists, your shares keep getting payouts. So you want to have a penalty system so people at the end of their stake actually go ahead and end their stakes, otherwise your shares keep on earning. So they can choose to just keep it in and they'll keep their shares. But I would recommend just ending their stake and just restaking if they want to. But yeah, it's important. There's a 7-day grace period on miners. So let's say you start a miner, you go for 280 days. If you don't claim on day 280, you don't get any penalties until day 287. And then that's when the penalties start kicking in. And same thing for staking. You have 7 days, a window where you don't have to pay any penalties. And then the penalties start kicking in.
Okay. So as for these dividend payments, let's say, you had a claim on day 871 and you decide to wait 7 days before you start getting hit with penalties. Will that penalty be factored into a decreased dividend amount or
No, the shares stay the same.
this
So the way it works is when you stake your Titan X, your tokens are locked, but your yield is liquid. So when a payout happens, the Ethereum that you get from the payout, you can claim whenever you want. It's only your tokens that are locked. So the yield is liquid, the stakes are
okay.
locked. So you, for example, you create a stake on day 7, and you get the 8-day payout, the 28-day payout. You can wait 100 days to claim your Ethereum. That's totally fine. But you have to go into the protocol and claim. It's a very important security design principle that you don't want to automatically send coins to people, and you want to get them to come in and claim with their own private keys. But yeah, the yield is liquid and your tokens are locked. That's awesome.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. That took me a minute to understand, but okay. I completely understand what you're saying. I think we're at the same wavelength now. I got you. So cool. So we talk about this proof of burn concept. You can build projects on top of it. It's a way to bring in adoption. In my opinion, it's vertical integration. Rather than have 20 tokens outside of TitanX, you have one token that will support projects. Now, do you think TitanX is going to be similar to a launchpad, or how would you describe this utility?
I personally only care about buy and burn stuff. Anything that makes the chart look better and the supply go down, I'm a very, very, very big fan of. So I'm not going to be a supporter of meme coins launching on top of TitanX. I couldn't get less of that. I think Zen is a perfect area if people want to be creative and actually like have hobby projects and kind of figure this whole crypto game out. I think Zen is perfect for that. TitanX is more on the serious side where, hey, if you're going to build a garbage protocol, you're also going to get garbage marketing and nobody's going to care.
Right.
So I'm a big believer in buy and burn. So Hyper is going to be the first protocol. And that's going to be confidential for a while until it comes out. But the whole Atropa style liquidity pool magic will start coming into effect once Hyper exists. So the proof of burn, yes, I would like to see things built on top of it. Like, for example, the community could build a DEX where the actual fees go towards buying and burning TitanX. They could build a lending protocol where the fees go towards buying and burning TitanX. That kind of stuff I'm a very, very big fan of. Like meme coins and stuff, like I couldn't get less of a F, you know?
Right.
There's all the faces for that.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love meme coins. They're fun, but they don't add too much value to space. But it does get people excited about cryptocurrency, especially one big popular meme coin, Bear. Bears everywhere. I don't know if you've been on Twitter or X, but
Yep.
every time I open up, I see a little Gucci teddy bear. It drives me crazy to a point where I might actually go buy one just because I see it so much. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, that's cool. It's like you're bringing this concept of trying to add more utility to the space. Now, you bring up this concept of like base layer. Could you kind of explain that? Because you bring up in your white paper, and I'm not sure if people understand what that means.
Yep. So what I mean when I say TitanX is a base layer, it would essentially be with the proof of burn, project protocols can start building on top of TitanX, and it would essentially become the base layer where the community comes from and all the money comes from. So it essentially becomes the base layer because the way Hyper is also going to be designed is everything should go back to the TitanX pool because that's going to be the biggest liquidity pool in existence. If things really pick up, it might be the biggest liquidity pool on Ethereum outside of Ethereum. If it really picks up. But you essentially want the base layer to have as big of a community as possible and as big of a liquidity pool as possible, so everything can traverse to there, and all the value accrues at the Titan level because that's the main liquidity pool. That's kind of what I mean by base layer. Because if people build on top of Titan X is the base layer, and their price performance is based off of Titan X, because it's going to be priced in Titan X. So that's some more advanced game theory stuff, but that's basically what I mean by base layer.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, moving on. So let's go into multi-chain. Right now, this bull market, interoperability, multi-chain, we see tokens all over the place. We have one token on launched on one blockchain. We have another launched another blockchain. Probably mentioning Zen if anyone's wondering. But Titan X right now is expected to be on Ethereum. Will we expect Titan X to be on any other blockchains?
Only if it's really, really, really worth it. And when I say really worth it, I mean volume. Because Ethereum does $1 billion a day in volume. Pulse Chain, as an example, does like 8 million a day. So even if you get 10% adoption on Pulse Chain, that's only like 800K a day. But if you get 1% adoption on Ethereum, that's 10 million a day. So it's better to focus all of your community and marketing efforts on one chain and not split the community up. I'm not a fan of multi-chain at all. At all. But if a chain gets massive amounts of volume, like I think anything above like consistently 250 million a day, it could be a good marketing move. But below that number, it's better to just stay on Ethereum.
Yeah. I always talk about this concept of economic energy. If you launch the same code on a different blockchain, you're splitting up the buying power behind the tokens. And I feel like it has more momentum on just one blockchain. And regardless of whether people like it or not, Ethereum's going to be around for a little bit. I mean, I get it. It's not a great product, but that's like the first introduction into cryptocurrency. Coinbase plugs directly into Ethereum. They don't have Binance Smart Chain. They don't have any of these other blockchains. So I think it's a smart decision to stay on Ethereum, and you never know. Hopefully, we'll see you on another blockchain. I'm not gonna mention anything because I know people are gonna snip this, but you never know what you're gonna get. So, but cool. So, in your opinion, is Titan X a new approach to blockchain certificate deposits?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say so. I think it's just a new paradigm when it comes to token distribution because I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I'm not a fan of sacrifices and that whole token distribution model because what happens is, let's say you get a $10 million sacrifice. Have you ever noticed like usually these sacrifices don't perform at all when it comes to price?
Yeah.
And I figured out why. It comes down to liquidity pool because since you've been around meme coins, what usually happens with meme coins is they launch at like a $50,000 market cap and then they shoot up to a million. And then the liquidity pool is like 50 grand. Now, there's usually only a couple people that have a large amount of supply that can actually empty the entire liquidity pool. With sacrifice, it's the other way around, where you could start at $1 million market cap if you have $1 million sacrifice, and the liquidity pool is still only 50K, but now you have like 1,000 people that can literally rug it to zero instead of 2 people. So sacrifices in general are just a bad token distribution model. It makes the founders rich, but then it kind of fucks over the community, in my opinion. So that's why I was a big fan of the fair launch. Because if you believe in the protocol, you should be able to just participate as a user. I mean, as long as you have more than like 10 grand or whatever, you should be able to just participate as a user. And obviously, the founders have benefits. But sacrifices in general, I was never a fan of because the price never performs. So it just becomes this niche project and just kind of trends into irrelevance, and the chart just keeps going down. Wait, where was I going with that? What was the question?
No. That was a good bit, but the concept is Titan X new approach to certificate deposits.
Oh, no, but I do think it's a new token distribution model because what happens with sacrifices, for example, is all the money comes in and then none of it goes back to the users, it all goes to the founders. So the Titan X design is actually an extremely fair way to make it's kind of like an ongoing community owned pre-sale, sort
Right.
of. Because all of the money that goes into creating the supply goes back to the community. So I think this could be like a new as I've seen it a lot, like a lot of big smart crypto heads are talking about like, hey, this whole like pre-sale era is over. I think the next bull run is going to be around fair launch stuff. Because those are the only things that really perform in price. Like for example, Pepe, that was a fair launch. As far as I'm aware. And it's those things that always take everybody by storm. It's never the pre-sales.
Right. Yeah. You know, I like that assessment because with the pulse chain, I call it we're kind of in this weird PDI revolution in the pulse chain, which is kind of funny because it seems like a lot of outsiders are coming in and talking about a tropa and whatnot, and there's this huge attractiveness behind fair launch tokens on Ethereum. We got a lot of dumping. We got ambassadors or I guess you can say influencers getting their token distribution and just selling off after it hits $1 million to $5 million market cap. And so the reason why more people are coming on to Pulse Chain is because a lot of these tokens are by definition fair launch. They're buying it up. There's no sketchiness going on behind the overall token. There's a little bit of, some whales, but that's just how it is. And so to see you implement a fair launch on top of this new innovative approach to certificate deposits, I think it's a really cool concept. And it's going to be a really great experiment. And in my opinion, based off of the buy and burn and all these utility, I'm really excited to see what you have down the road. Now, coming on to the next thing, are you aware of sniper bots by chance?
Yes.
Okay, so you got your liquidity pool. I mean, so we got the TINEX launch coming out. Are you putting in any measures to avoid sniper bots? Because they're really big on Ethereum right now.
No, because the way it kind of works is even if they buy up, so they could never buy up the entire supply because of how Uniswap V3 works. If they want to buy up the entire supply, they would push the price up over 100x. And then, so the interesting thing is, even if sniper bots come in and they buy a big portion of the initial supply, they'll just get diluted into oblivion by all the miners. So even if they come in, they're just making everybody's miners more profitable. So then they just get diluted. So I actually kind of invite them in. It's going to make it better for all the miners.
You should post that on your X profile. Be like, sniper bots welcome. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I mean, the sniper bots, even they never buy it much, right? It's like 50 to $200 usually.
Yeah. Well, how it was, I guess it is. I'm not sure. I haven't really wrapped my head around it. All I know is they buy up a huge supply and they just slowly dump it off. And someone was telling me that there's been sniper bots that have been known to somehow get like 50% of the supply of like a really small meme coin and then just pump it up, get people in, and then boom, it gets hit. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And so the idea is it's on Ethereum left and right. So Ethereum's like a massacre right now. And then on Pulse Chain, they haven't come over to the Pulse Chain yet, but everyone's scared because they might come over. So that's
Yeah.
where things get interesting. So
But the sniper bots are actually relatively interesting because this is also like an Easter egg inside of TitanX, but we actually built a lot of liquidity management code that we ended up pulling out because of the complexity, but we kept the core part of it, where the initial liquidity pool is owned by the buy and burn smart contract with no way to access it, but it's owned by the buy and burn smart contract. So we can actually collect fees on the initial liquidity pool. So if sniper bots start trading it back and forth and dumping it, they just rack up fees in the 1% pool, the 1% TitanX pool. And then once they exit, you can just call the publicly callable collect fees function, and all of the trading fees basically go to buy and burn.
wow.
That's an Easter egg.
Wow, that's impressive. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Hey, this isn't an amateur project. This is really well thought through.
Yeah, you kind of blew my mind there. The way you lay that out. Wow, that dang. Yeah, so that's one thing I really like about how you're doing that controlled inflation behind TitanX. And when it comes to these cryptocurrency projects, one thing I remember with Hex is people are saying this is pretty advanced, even though it's not really that advanced. It's just for new retail traders coming in. They look at the white paper, they don't really understand it. It takes a month, and then the light bulb turns on. They're like, aha. Do you think TitanX is at a significant disadvantage when it comes to onboarding new retail traders or new retail investors in the cryptocurrency space?
I don't actually think so,
Oh,
because
okay.
so with my marketing background, I used to be extremely good at funnel conversion optimization. So I know how to make marketing messages simple, especially in DIY. Because most crypto developers are like good developers, but then they absolutely suck at user experience. So I used to be a front end developer as well. I was kind of full stack. I was back end and front end. So
Right.
I know how to design really good UIs. The user experience on TitanX is simple. You start a miner and you stake. It's the back end that gets kind of complicated. Um, Let's see if I can actually share.
Okay.
Share screen. Maybe I
Yeah.
can share the tab.
Yeah. You should be able. I think there should be an option. Oh, there you go.
Okay, let me see if it shows up. Okay, so this is the dashboard for TitanX. This is just
Awesome.
on a local hard hat. So these are not real numbers at all, but this is just local hard hat blockchain. But basically, here you can see the miner ROI. So if you go here and you do single miner, so you have two options: single miner or batch miner. So if you do a batch miner, you can create up to 100 single miners in one transaction instead of doing 100 individual transactions. Still costs the same. You pay a little bit less in gas because you do it all in one transaction. But basically, you have miner length and miner power. Now, when you put these variables in, the UI already calculates how much Titan you're going to get at the end of your miner. So, for example, it's currently day one on the contract. You can set miner length 280, miner power 100, which means you would get 1.707, 1.7 billion Titan X at the end of your miner. It will cost you 0.2 Ethereum. And this is the current market value of that Titan X on my local Uniswap V3. And it will automatically display the miner ROI to all the users. So the marketing message is very, very simple. And people can clearly see what's happening.
Gotcha. So you made the UI design to be clear, concise, straight to the point, and basically anyone who's new to this field or well this industry can come in and just take a look and say, okay, I got a good idea. So that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's a
End result.
I won't share it yet, but there's a lot of social tooling built into the dApp that makes it extremely easy for people to share automatically generated tweets based on real-time data. They just click a button and they can tweet it, and it automatically populates all their tweet text and stuff. So this is made to be extremely marketable because people can basically just market, hey, if you start a miner on a Titan X, you pay $300 to start your miner, but it's currently worth 10 grand.
Okay.
And the
Gotcha.
miner percentage ROI also shows up in like an image and stuff like that.
Right.
The marketing message is very simple.
I see. I see. Yeah. Well, I like how you bring up social tooling. That's actually a concept that you don't hear a lot in cryptocurrency, but you see it a lot. Typical social tooling is the typical ones that I see is referral links, drip network, a lot of these other projects. Are you doing something similar with like referral links where someone uses your referral link, you get like a certain percentage in TitanX tokens, or are you talking something a little bit higher, a little bit more advanced?
The social tooling is pretty much for pre-written tweets based on real-time data and stuff. Let me actually show you. For example, it's in the share tab, but I'll keep this quiet. People have to click into the tab. But there's
Okay.
a stats page, for example. And here you can see the percentage of supply that is currently liquid, staked, penalties, user burned, and then buy and burned. So in this example, after like 300 Ethereum and mining, this is for local testing, it essentially burned $2.3 million worth of Titan.
Wow.
It's pretty wild. But essentially, like for example, a piece of social tooling is there's this button here, take screenshot, and it'll essentially take automatically a screenshot of this, download it to your computer, and then you can post it on Twitter. This is a super simple example, but it makes it very simple for people to start sharing stuff.
Okay. Okay. I see. I like that. I like that. I like your new approach to marketing because another thing that a lot of people are getting tired of are influencers and their token allocations. And it seems like you're bypassing influencers by using the dApp features and community development to really promote this project. And it's very similar to what we see with like, Zen and Hex. So would you say that's a fair assessment? You're trying to do like the community development, community run, try to use the Richard Hart formula, so to speak?
100%. Yeah, the only cryptos that really survive are grassroots community cryptos, where it kind of grows like this. And I think a lot of the initial community also comes from the DNA of the founder. So I think if you have a founder that is good at creating content, that has promotes through data, I also believe in promoting through data and not opinions. So people can just share, hey, this amount of Titan X has already been burned. It's an auto pre-populated tweet. Next payout cycle is in X days, etc., etc. There's a bunch of like onboarding tweets and stuff. I think if you market based off of data, it's such a good marketing approach because you can be like, hey, it costs you $300 to start a miner. At the end of your miner, it's worth 10 grand currently. Obviously, nobody will get that, but it will be very substantial. When people read that, it's like, oh, this is interesting, and it's not something you can really argue against because it's data from the chain.
Right.
I like that marketing approach a lot.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a very fascinating. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen a project use that approach, especially using with like data and numbers and also having an inbuilt tool to put it on x.com and your socials. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, but that is such a fascinating concept, and I would not be surprised if you see projects copy what you're doing with,
Probably.
yeah, I guarantee you're going to see a lot of like copycats with that. Now, one thing I also want to talk to you about, you talked about founders and, how they perform with their product in the bull market. When I study Richard Hart, one thing I saw was he did live streams and then he also used news events. These are two reasons why I think X 10,000X. Live streams very simple. You talk about the product, you add value, you also talk about things going on in the market while also educating the audience about real DeFi, which you spoke about in the beginning. But you also use news events, big paid days, Pulse Chain launch, PulseX launch. All these news events brought a lot of excitement to Hex. Do you think we'll see a similar formula with Titan X?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Okay.
Hyper is an example of one.
Yeah, that's where I
Yeah.
caught it when we talked about hyper. I said that's interesting. So, but also there's a little bit more to your project because you can also incentivize people to build on top of it. So, cool. Now, I think we're getting close to the end. I got a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. So last thing, do you think Titan X will add value or will it compete with Hex and Zen since a lot of people reference the comparison?
I mean, Zen is actually comparatively relatively small. It's like a $9 million market cap. So I think Zen is going to be fine. And Hex is like a multi-billion-dollar one. So it's like two very extreme things. I think Titan X just markets to a different type of person. I think Zen is like for very tech savvy people that like love that tech stuff and the creativity, and then like the ex Google founder. I think Titan X is just for like it's for guys like us, man. We're in crypto for number go up. What else are we here for? Good vibes? Not really.
Yeah, I put out a tweet about that. I said anyone who says that they're into crypto for the technology is full of it. 99.9999% people in crypto are here for the money. So and then there's a few people here for project development. That's just my opinion. So cool. All right, well, let's go through and see if we got any good questions going on. I know we got a billion questions, so let's see. Oh yeah, shout out to Viber Finance, my boy Adam. Really great guy, really good dude. Jamie, our boy Jamie Crypto, stoked about Titan X. So
With the Red Bull in the image.
wait, what do
Gotcha.
you oh, the Red Bull, I love that. Utah Hexagon. He said Titan X is going to melt faces. Yusef, this project is going to be fire. Let's see. Mr. Chuck, do you see Titan X stakers earning similar ETH yield as DBXN stakers? Jake, what do you think?
Potentially, it all depends on adoption because it's not a set number of Ethereum. It's whatever number of miners come in that fill the payout cycles. There's going to be two main ways of earning yield with Titan X. One is going to be staking, and the other one is going to be liquidity providing. I actually have very strong gut feeling that liquidity providing is going to be massively profitable on Titan X because of how the pool is set up. So the pool works. The pool is going to be an exotic pool, so it's 1% fee. That's going to be the pool. And then you have all the buy and burn going into it. You have all the users coming into it, all the supply coming into existence. So there's very likely going to be a lot of volume on that pool, on a 1% pool. So I think the two main yield strategies for Titan X are going to be either staking or liquidity providing. But if it gets sufficient adoption, like it could definitely beat DBZen when it
Yeah.
comes to Ethereum yield.
Yeah, well, and also, and this is not against DBZen. I think DBZen, what they accomplished at the beginning of the launch was phenomenal. And then they also had the DBZen NFTs, which is adding value. But one thing I notice is, DBZen has a massive price correlation to Zen. So when Zen's going down, you're going to see the same exact thing happen to DBZen, whether it has to do with liquidity pools or just the overall price of Zen. So in my opinion, based on what we talked about with Titan X, there's very well not financial advice, a realm of possibility that these dividend payments could be more with Titan X. But also, please keep in mind that's not a shot at DBZen. I love both protocols. So, awesome. So, Damien, always good to see you, Damien. He's on every live stream. Really good guy. Really big Zenian. Boss man, shout out to you, dude. Now, Ryan Torres, why didn't Jake use Titan X to burn Zen and Hex? Jake, your response.
Well, actually, this is the initial design of Titan X was actually including Zen. But then, so this is kind of the thing that pissed me off. And this is not a personal attack on Jack. Like, I think Jack is an absolutely awesome person just in general. But after the way he launched VMPX just kind of rung me in the wrong way, where there was $7 million going into minting to run a useless do work function that just sparked up the gas fees for everybody, and that money went nowhere. He could have just burned Zen. He could have just sent that 7 million to a buy and burn contract, completely decentralized, and buy and burn Zen off the market. And none of that. Just pure economic waste and creating a second token. And now from a tweet I saw, he's also creating 3 new tokens. Zenium, Zen blocks, and super blocks. And I'm like, come on, dude. So at first design, I actually wanted to implement Zen into Titan X. But then if I'm going to pretty much dedicate my entire life to something, I don't want it to be dependent on, for example, if Titan X gets massive adoption and then Jack decides to launch another token and gets all the attention away from Zen, which indirectly would take all of the attention away from Titan X, that's a risk that I was not willing to take, because Titan X is not a hobby project. Like, it's a very serious thing. So yeah, the initial design was with it. But then after we saw how it kind of operated and how the attention was getting split in the community and the economic value being split, and then also if you launch it on top of Zen, you create this like sub community within Zen. So Titan could never be bigger than Zen because of how it would be built. So if Zen was like at a $9 million market cap, Titan would probably be capped at like 3 million, which is not what I want.
Right.
So by detaching it, you create this category of one and has a lot more room to grow.
Yeah, I agree, man. And just to build off on that, Zen's going to be the success of Zen's going to be extremely dependent on X1 and the 333 auctions. That's where we're going to see the big demand behind it. And I do agree with the launch of the new tokens. The divide in the economic energy was crazy, and it makes sense that you have your own Titan X token behind it. So I do agree with your approach. I see your reasoning, and in my opinion, I think it's going to be extremely beneficial. Just to be clear, we don't hate on Zen. Zen's a great protocol. There's just different products in the space, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it plenty going on to the future. So,
I mean, it kind of sucks, man. I really didn't want to do it because I'm a big Zen whale. I'm like in the top 20 of Zen. Yeah, it is what it is.
Hey, man, it is what it is. You gotta do what you gotta do, man. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. So, cool. Let's see. John, history in the process, borrowing ideas, making something new. Titan X is an evolution. In my opinion, I mean, I think it's a little bit more advancement behind borrowing ideas, but John, definitely a really great point. So, cool. Yusuf loves the design. Yusuf, one thing, the market cap isn't going to start at 0. We covered at the beginning of the live stream. So I believe, did you say it was going to be with 28 ETH, correct?
Well, here's the interesting thing, right? So I think I know what he's saying because I talked to him in the Telegram. Is because 350 billion Titan is owned by this buy and burn smart contract and put into the pool, no users actually own that supply. So it starts at virtually 0. Because the buy and burn can't dump, and it's not going to dump anything. So it starts at pretty much 0 because it's 0 owned by anybody.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. And then, all right, well, I think that's it for the questions. So pretty positive questions, like that. Really great questions. So, all right, man. Well, like I said, I think this is an awesome live stream. I think we cover a lot of great stuff, and I know you're going to be on tour, so to speak. You got Crypto Kindness tomorrow, and then you have another live streamer on Sunday. I forgot his name.
Smooth and Crypto.
Smooth and Crypto. Okay, so we got him on Sunday, and seems like you're gonna be spreading the good message. Is there any last remarks you want to say about Titan X or anything?
One security tip I can give to everybody is we designed TitanX in a way where it doesn't hold custody over anybody's coin, but there is one thing that it does has custody of, and that's the Ethereum. So when you stake and you get your Ethereum payouts, they register in your wallet, and you have to go to the TitanX app and claim them. This is very important. So we did double audits. First audit was finished. That was a top 10 Code Arena auditor. So basically top 10 auditor in the world. Now we're having a second auditor. He started 2 days ago. I'm looking over the code again with a fresh pair of eyes. But there's never a zero chance of a hack. Now, if something gets hacked, the only thing that hackers can really do is drain funds. The only funds that the smart contract holds is the Ethereum paid out to stakers. So the way you can protect yourself from a security perspective is when you get a staking payout, just go to the dApp and claim your Ethereum. So you pull it from the contract into your wallet. So if something happens, you have your Ethereum. Everything else is going to be fine, but that's a just general good security practice for everybody to follow.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, awesome, awesome last recap. And then the one thing I want to say is, after going through your project and seeing your white paper and having this conversation with you, I definitely think you have something here, and you have a new approach to certificate deposits. And it's going to be interesting to see how this rolls out, how it plays, and how to see how do the fundamentals form, how do the tokenomics form, how do these liquidity pools form? Because how I see this project coming out is there's going to be a lot of things to learn. We got a massive buy and burn. How's that going to affect the price? We have this concept of virtual mining on top of staking. How's that going to affect the price with inflation coming out? And then we also have a base layer where projects can launch on top of that. How is that going to affect the price? Will this increase adoption? And will we actually get more development behind the TitanX protocol? So there's a lot of questions I just laid out there. And these are things that we will answer over time. But overall, I like the project. I think the biggest downside is the education component and trying to explain this to new users coming in. I know you talked about how easy it is for the website to understand, but also there's always going to be a certain learning curve of cryptocurrency. Maybe this is something you can achieve through live streaming, or maybe a community forms around it that can educate more people. So that's just my big open-ended thing, and that question, like I said, will be answered in the future. But like I said, man, awesome live stream. Thank you so much for coming on, dude. And you need to come back on and we do a follow-up, man. So
Hell yeah.
it'll be awesome. So cool. And if you guys want to check out Jake, on the title, his YouTube channel's there in the description. There's the TitanX doc paper. Doc paper. There's the TitanX white paper. There's his Twitter. There's his YouTube, and there's also his website. So everything you need to know about Jake is there. Check him out, read the white paper, and we got the launch at the end of this month, so it's gonna be pretty awesome. And I might do a live stream on launch day, so we'll see you guys. So awesome. So like I said, man, thanks for coming on, and we have to do it again. So
this was good, man. Man, it's the first live stream in a while. This was good. I enjoyed it because if you're in building it, you don't understand what it looks like to new people anymore after like 6 months. So this is why I didn't do a solo live stream going on with other people. Is you guys know what to ask? I don't know anymore at this point, because I've been so deep in it.
Yeah, well, I think on the future live streams coming up, they're probably going to look at my live stream and they're going to look for questions I didn't ask, and then they're going to hit you with those. So yeah, so I'm definitely excited, man. I'm definitely excited to see the other live streams and how it all performs. So, but yeah, man. So, all right, man. Well, yeah, we'll definitely do this next one. So, thanks for joining.
Talk soon.
Peace out. All right.